Hey guys, how's it going? Hope everybody's doing well out there today. In the past, we've taken a look at a Docker management system called CasaOS that we've installed and have been managing on a Raspberry Pi 4. And we're going to continue that series today. And in this video, we're going to take a look at how to install and configure Nginx Proxy Manager to access your containers remotely from the internet. But first, a quick message from today's video sponsor. YourCDKey.com is a great place to get Windows 10 keys at incredibly low prices. So here we are on the Microsoft Windows 10 Pro page, and right here you can see the current price is $20.05. But if you use the coupon code that's in the description down below, you'll get it even cheaper. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here and click apply. And now our new total for Windows 10 Pro is about $15. Now I have the option to go ahead and view the keys right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Then I'll click on get the key. And then I'm going to come over here, and right there you can change the product key. So go ahead and click on that. I'm going to go ahead and change the product key right here. So I've entered my key and I'll click next. Then I'll click on activate. And here we can see that Windows is activated. Next, what we want to do is go ahead and validate the key installation. And right there, you can see that Windows 10 Professional Edition is permanently activated. So head on over to YourCDKey.com to get your next Windows 10 Pro key at ridiculously low prices. You may notice that things look a little bit different from well, basically all of my previous videos, and that is because we're doing kind of a test run video in the new studio space. There's still quite a bit of work to be done, but I kind of figure let's give it a shot, see how it goes. Obviously, there's going to be more stuff up on the walls on both sides of me back here very soon. In fact, some of that should be here today, and there'll be more sound treatment and things like that to hopefully improve the audio later on. But I thought we would just go ahead and make a video in here today, see how it goes, and just kind of get a feel for the new space. Okay, so here we are on my desktop, and this is obviously CasaOS. This is kind of where we left it off last time with AdGuard Home and Bookstack and that sort of thing up and running. And of course, the next thing that we want to do here is add Nginx Proxy Manager to this setup. Now, in order to do that, there will be a couple of things that we need to do. And the first one is actually change the port that CasaOS's dashboard resides on. So what we're going to do is actually come up here to the top left, and we're going to go to this little settings slider icon right here. And right here where it says Web UI port, there's an edit button right under 80. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And really, we can change this to basically whatever makes us feel happy. What I'm going to do, though, because I know some of the other ports I'm going to need here very soon, I'm going to change this to port 90 like so. And then I'll click Submit. This will go ahead and reload the page and actually take us to that new URL. However, you'll notice that we're asked to log in again. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and now we're brought right back to where we were. But if you look at the URL bar up at the top, you'll notice that now we're on port 90 instead of having no port, which of course by default is 80. So the next thing that we want to do here, now that we've got that part configured, is go up here to the App Store icon right there, and we're going to do a custom install. So we're going to click right here, and basically at this point, we're going to just kind of fill in some blanks. So in order to get the configuration that we need, what we're going to do is go to nginxproxymanager.com. Then we'll click on Get Started. And we're just going to use the basic setup that they have available on this page. I'm actually going to zoom in here just a little bit because I haven't adjusted my scaling since I put this new system together. I'm actually on the new recording setup, obviously. Same camera, but different microphone, different monitor, different laptop. Actually, laptop instead of computer. So we're doing things a little differently, and it's going to take a little time for me to kind of get all of this dialed in. So just bear with me on this. We'll get there hopefully very soon. So the first thing that we want to take a look at right here is the image. This will go right here. We actually don't need the quotes for that because we're just doing a copy and paste to fill in some blanks. We're going to type in, we can name this whatever we want. This is what will show up on our dashboard. So I'm just going to call this NPM for Nginx Proxy Manager. Sometimes I still get that confused in my head. As a web developer in my previous life, NPM was Node Package Manager, and that still confuses me after having done this for a couple of years. So there we are. Anywho, the next thing we want to do here, it's automatically filled in the icon URL. However, I know that this isn't going to work. So I'm going to do something that's kind of a jerk move, but I'm going to right click up here, copy the image address, and I'm just going to paste that in. Oops. right there like so, and that will give us the little Nginx Proxy Manager icon that we want on our dashboard. For the web UI port, we're going to skip that. We'll come back to it in just a moment, but we will want to put that in here when we're set up and ready to go. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add some ports. We're going to actually add 3 sets of ports. The first one will be for our dashboard. By default, that's set to be port 81 on the container, and then you can actually change the host to another port if you don't want to access it on port 81. But if you're just setting up CasaOS for the first time and Nginx Proxy Manager for the first time, port 81 is probably just fine. Now, port 81 is going to be the port that we access our Nginx Proxy Manager dashboard on. So what we want to do is actually come up here to where it says Web UI and actually put port 81 in right there. If you change the host port over here on the left-hand side, you're going to match the Web UI port to that same port number. So that's just kind of how those two work together there. The next 2 ports that we're going to need will be port 80 and port 443. Like so. I believe that you can just leave both of those on TCP and it should be just fine. Next, we've got some data ports, or sorry, volumes, not ports, volumes. So the first volume will be for data. This is basically where our Nginx Proxy Manager configuration will go on our CasaOS install. So I'm going to go ahead and create a volume here. The container port, like I said, will be /data. That's what the internal part of the container needs to do its thing. And then if you've watched my previous videos, you'll know that I've done home/docker/ and then I'm gonna do npm like so, and then data. And that will give us the path to install our Nginx Proxy Manager Docker container into. So that's what we're gonna do there. We're gonna do one more of these like so, and this will be for Let's Encrypt. So the first thing we're going to do is grab the container portion of things here, and we're going to go ahead and paste that in there. And then I'm just going to copy this and paste it in there as well. And then I'm just going to make this so that the Let's Encrypt stuff will go to home, docker, npm, and then into Let's Encrypt. Basically, at that point, we're basically done. There are no environmental variables. There's no need for like PUID and PGID. There's no need for any of that. This is just a great basic install for what we're going to do here. So what I want to do next is actually scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on install right here. And then it's going to go through the process of pulling this and deploying it here on our CasaOS install. Now, while it's doing this, there are some other things that we'll want to do to kind of get prepped for this, and that's going to be doing port forwarding on our network. Chances are you're going to have one of 2 basic setups. The first setup will be your typical setup where you've got like a modem and router that you've got from your internet service provider. If that's the case, you just need to log into that and forward ports 80 and 443 from that device to your CasaOS install. In that case, you would forward ports 80 and 443 to whatever IP address you've got for CasaOS. So that would be just kind of a basic install. However, I use my internet service provided modem as a modem, and I don't do any network management on that other than port forwarding. I manage the rest of my network on my Unify setup with the controller and that sort of thing. So in a case like that, what you would need to do is figure out what IP address your modem has given your secondary router, in this case my Unify router, and then what you'll do is actually forward ports 80 and 443 from your modem to your router, and then you'll log into your router and forward your ports 80 and 443 from your router then to your CasaOS install. And it's kind of an extra hop. So you're forwarding from one device to another. That's how I've got my network set up. There's a chance that you may also have a similar setup to that. Hopefully all of that makes sense. That's how we kind of have to do things when we're doing port forwarding here. Okay, so here we are on our dashboard again. We can see that npm, or Nginx Proxy Manager, has deployed here. It looks like our CPU is kind of chilled out for the most part, so we should be able to go ahead and click on our icon right here and come over to our login page. Now, This has a pre-built account in it, but we're going to change that here in just a moment. So what we'll do is we'll come back over here to Nginx Proxy Manager website, and then our default admin username and password are right here. It's admin@example.com and change me. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste those in like so. And then once it logs us in, the first thing it wants us to do is actually change our username and password, or rather our email address and password. So I'll go ahead like so, and of course you can change like so, and then we'll click save. And then it's going to ask us to enter our existing password, which again is change me. And then we're going to go ahead and paste that in, and we'll put in a new password like so. So when we come back to our dashboard, we've just got some information here where we're going to focus. A little bit of our time is actually going to be in proxy hosts. And right here, you can see that there are no proxy hosts. So this is where we're going to do our routing of our domain name to our containers. The next thing we want to do, I like to use CloudFlare for managing my DNS and for DDoS protection and for firewalls and things like that. I love using CloudFlare for those things. I've been using it for a long time. So what we want to do is actually go over to CloudFlare and take a look over there just real quick here. Okay, so here we are on my dashboard for the URL dbtech.tips. That's what we're going to use for this setup. So the first thing that I want to do is actually, here you can see I've got my domain name set up. My first record in here is an A-type record. The name is dbtech.tips. The content is blurred, but that is my home's IP address. Next to that, we've got a proxy status of proxied and a time to live of auto, and then actions. There's nothing there. We don't need to worry about that. What we want to do is kind of simplify our lives moving forward. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to generate an SSL from CloudFlare that we're going to import into Nginx Proxy Manager, and it will really save us a lot of time later on when we're setting up additional domains and that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is come over here to the left-hand side of the page where it says SSL TLS, and we're going to go ahead and click on, I think, Origin Server. Is that right? It is. So here you can see I've got a couple of SSL certificates, and that's fine, but we're going to create a couple more just for the sake of having them. So we're going to create a certificate, and we're going to leave this as the generate private key and CSR with CloudFlare. There's an option to use a private key and CSR. We don't want to do that. We're going to let CloudFlare dictate what our key and certificate are. So below that, we've got a list of domains. Basically, we've got our standard dbtech.tips domain, and then we've also got a wildcard, which is the *dbtech.tips. So those are the two that we want, basically one for the primary domain and then one for all of the subdomains. So we don't have to create one for each separate subdomain. We're going to use a wildcard here. Next, the certificate validity by default is set to 15 years. I think that's a bad idea. Don't do 15 years. You can do, as little as 7 days if you just want to do some testing and that sort of thing. You can do 30 days, 90 days, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 15 years. That's a big gap in my opinion. I, however, am just going to do 1 year here. And then I'm going to click on create. And then you can see that we're going to have two different types of key, files here. We're going to have a key format, which will be our PEM file. That'll make more sense here in a bit. So what I want to do is copy this. And then I want to, do I have Kate on here? I do. So I'm going to open up Kate. Kate is just basically, sorry, I'm on Linux. Again, I mentioned that I'm on this laptop. It's a Linux laptop. So this is going to be basically our notepad. Whether you use Notepad, Notepad++, whatever, this is what I'm going to use. And I'm just going to save that in there. Go ahead and make that a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to do a file. I'm going to do save as, and I'm going to do tech tips. And we're going to do .pem for this, like so. You may have to, depending on what kind of notepad editor, whatever you're using, you may have to change this from all files to something else. I'm just going to go ahead and put this in my documents right in here, and I'll click save. And then I'm going to come down back over here to CloudFlare. I'm going to copy this like so, and this will be the private key. So then I can come back over here to Kate, do a new one, paste that in, do save, and then we're going to do tech tips.key, like so, and then we'll click save there as well. So now we have the two components that we need to upload our SSL to Nginx Proxy Manager, again, to save ourselves some headache later on. So what we're going to do is come back to our Nginx Proxy Manager setup here. We're going to go to SSL certificates. We're going to add an SSL certificate. Oops, actually I lied. I want to add the SSL certificate from up here and do a custom key there. So we're going to do, I'm just going to name this Tech Tips, just so it's easy to remember later on. Our key file, in this case, we'll go to our documents and we'll do our key. And then for our certificate will be our PEM file. And then our intermediate file we don't need. We'll just skip that and we'll click save. Cool. So now we can see that our key is good until January 24th of 2023. So exactly a year from today. So the next thing we want to do is come back over to our DNS for our domain name. And again, here we're back to this a record of our root domain. What I want to do though is actually, let's come back to CasaOS. I don't mean to jump around so much, but here we are. Let's actually do a book stack. Let's access our book stack via a domain name. So let's go back over to here and let's add a record. In this case, I like to use a CNAME record in this case, because if I do that and I set up my CNAME, in fact, let's just do this. Let's call it book, and then we'll do @ so that we can see book.dbtechtips, dbtech.tips, like so. It's going to go like that. And we can leave this proxy because we're going to use our own custom SSL. If you were just going to use a Let's Encrypt SSL from that Nginx Proxy Manager was going to generate, you would then actually leave. You would actually set this to be DNS only. We're not going to do that though. So we'll click save. So now what's cool about this is if at any point I need to update all of my domain and all of its subdomains, by having all of my subdomains set up as CNAMEs, I then only have to update my primary domain content or my home's IP address one time. If I were to do A records for all of my subdomains, I would then have to update all of my A records individually, and that is tedious. So in this case, because they're all going to go to the same place, I can set up my CNAMEs or my subdomains as CNAMEs. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do here. So the next thing we'll do is actually come back over here to Nginx Proxy Manager. We'll go to hosts. We're going to go to proxy hosts, and we're going to add a proxy host. So again, because I copied this, I can paste that in there and hit enter. If you don't hit enter or tab right there and click somewhere else, it just disappears. It's a weird little thing, but there you go. So our scheme is, in this particular case, because we're doing book stack, and it does not have its own self-signed certificate built into the container, we're going to leave this scheme as HTTP. If you had a container that had HTTPS, or sorry, if you had a container that had the option for a self-signed certificate built into it, you could then switch this to HTTPS and then put your port specific to that HTTPS port. But again, we're not doing that. We're just going to leave this as HTTP. And then our host name or IP, in this case, will be 192.168.1.130, because that's the IP address of the device we're on. So we're going to go ahead and do that. The other thing that we want to do is come back over here to this. We're going to go into our settings, like so, and we just want to get a look at our whatever port we're using for our web UI here. So that was port 6875. So now I can come back over to here, paste that in. We can check all these boxes for caching assets, blocking common exploits, and supporting WebSockets. The next thing that we want to do is come over here to SSL certificates, select the certificate that we just imported from CloudFlare, basically, and then we can just do force force SSL and HTTPS2 support. If you have your domain set up on Cloudflare to support HSTS, then you can do that. If not, don't worry about it. Go ahead and just click on save here. So now in theory, if I click this, it should work. And it did. But if you look, you'll notice that the URL switched back over to our local IP address for the system. Because I know how this works, it actually did work appropriately. What we want to do though is go back over to our CasaOS, our book stack settings here, and change this to https books.dbtech.tips. Let me make sure that that's correct. I don't know if it was book or books. It was book. I'm glad I double checked. So it's book.dbtech.tips. So I want to check out that S like so. And now we have our app URL here set up appropriately. So we can click save. And we'll give this just a minute to redeploy with the new settings, and then hopefully everything will be set up and ready to go. Okay, so now if I click this, it didn't work. So let's do https book.dbtech.tips. Uh-oh, okay, so let's give it a moment.
A few moments later.
Okay, as per usual, it was a DNS issue and things just hadn't propagated all of the way. So sometimes you just gotta hang out and wait a minute, and then hopefully things will come up and do what you want them to do. So now, let's try logging in at dbtechreviews.com. There we go. Again, sometimes DNS is almost always the issue when we're dealing with domains, but after a couple of reloads and that sort of thing, I didn't actually change any settings going through that troubleshooting step there, but now we can see that Nginx Proxy Manager is up and running. We are actually on book.dbtech.tips that we actually set up over here in Nginx Proxy Manager with a custom SSL certificate that we exported or generated and exported from CloudFlare. So I know this video was kind of in depth where we covered several different topics where it was, installing Nginx Proxy Manager and configuring it. We talked about port forwarding. We talked about CloudFlare a little bit. We talked about generating SSLs through CloudFlare and importing those into Nginx Proxy Manager. So there's quite a bit that we covered here. I'm going to try to make sure that I've got chapters for all of these different things so that it's easy to get back to these different things if you need to kind of rewatch part of this. So hopefully you found the video helpful. This is one of those things that was requested by a few different people when I started doing CasaOS stuff. So I thought I would take the time to go ahead and make this video and add it to the CasaOS playlist. Of course, if you want to, I will have an export of this Nginx Proxy Manager container available over on Patreon if you want to just download and import the JSON file from Patreon and get yourself set up even faster. Of course, you also have to go through the process of generating your SSLs and that sort of thing, but hopefully the video is helpful in getting you set up there. Of course, like I said, you can download all of this stuff and deploy even faster by getting the file from Patreon. I do want to give a big shout out to my patrons. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. You guys are part of the reason, a big part of the reason that I'm able to actually set up this dedicated recording studio so that I can spend more time on my videos and hopefully be more in-depth with my presentations and things like that. So thank you to my existing patrons. Thank you to new patrons. Thank you to the guys who have been here forever and the guys who have been here a week. You guys all mean the world to me. So thank you very much. I think though, with all of that being said, I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. So as always, thanks for your time. I always appreciate your support, and I'll talk to you in the next video.